The Senate chamber was thick with tension, a battle of words looming like an impending storm. Adam Schiff, the California congressman with a reputation for his sharp tongue and strategic mind, was about to face the unexpected. For years, he had been the symbol of the opposition, a fierce voice against the establishment, unafraid to challenge even the most powerful of men. But in that moment, as the eyes of the nation rested on him, Schiff had no idea that his career was about to change forever. John Kennedy, the senator from Louisiana, was not known for the kind of fiery rhetoric that had defined Schiff's tenure in Congress. No, Kennedy was a man of humor, wit, and Southern charm, an unassuming figure who had won over millions with his dry humor and biting observations. Few took him seriously in the world of political combat, but the truth was, Kennedy's weapon wasn't just his folksy demeanor. It was his ability to cut through the noise, to reduce the complexities of Washington's labyrinth to simple truths. And that's exactly what he was about to do to Schiff. It all started when Schiff, standing on the Senate floor, launched into his usual self-righteous monologue. His voice echoed through the chamber, filled with accusations of corruption and calls for investigations. A typical sermon for those who had come to see him as the moral beacon of the nation. He was on a roll, distrustful of the system, pointing fingers, stirring up drama. His gaze never faltered, and his confidence never wavered. He had been here before. He knew the game. And for him, it was all a matter of winning over the crowd, of painting himself as the hero fighting against the villains. But the moment Schiff paused for breath, Kennedy, sitting silently in the back, rose to his feet. His presence wasn't commanding, but it was enough to silence the room. With a slight grin, he took his time, walking slowly to the front, his calm demeanor betraying nothing of the storm that was about to hit. "Now, Adam," Kennedy began, his voice smooth but laced with just enough of a twinkle to let the room know this was not going to be an ordinary rebuttal. "I reckon you think you're doing the American people a service, standing there all high and mighty, preaching about investigations and corruption. And maybe you think that's the way to win folks over. But what you've done, Adam, is you've turned a noble mission into a circus. And you, my friend, are the ringleader." The chamber was silent. Schiff's face froze. This was not the confrontation he expected. Kennedy continued, leaning forward, his eyes never leaving Schiff's. "You can throw words around all day, claiming the moral high ground, but you've got to look in the mirror sometime and ask yourself, is this about justice, or is this about your ego? You've made a career out of talking and pointing fingers. You say you're fighting for the truth, but the truth's a slippery thing, Adam. And sometimes, the truth is, you're more interested in being right than being honest." Schiff opened his mouth to respond, but Kennedy raised a hand, silencing him with a simple gesture. "Oh no, not yet," he said with a wry smile. "You'll get your turn, but I want you to think about something first." He paused for effect, allowing the weight of his words to settle. "You see, you're not a hero, Adam. You're just another politician who thinks the world owes him something. You've done a lot of talking, but not a lot of listening. You spent so much time on the attack, you've forgotten what you're supposed to be fighting for." Kennedy's voice grew quieter, almost tender, as if he were speaking directly to Schiff's heart. And that's the real shame. 'Cause the American people, they deserve more than just another politician who plays the game. They deserve someone who remembers why they're in the fight in the first place. The room was still. For the first time, Adam Schiff looked vulnerable. His polished demeanor, the sharpness of his attacks, had all but evaporated in the face of Kennedy's words. The audience could feel the shift, the stark realization that the world wasn't going to continue to let Schiff hide behind his political armor. The fight wasn't just about the battles they waged in the chambers. It was about something far deeper. It was about integrity, about true leadership. And in that moment, Kennedy had made it clear, Schiff had lost sight of that. The confrontation wasn't just a defeat of words. It was a moment of reckoning for Schiff. It was the kind of moment that anyone in power fears, the kind where the public stops seeing you as a warrior and starts seeing you for what you really are. A man who had once prided himself on standing up for the truth, now laid bare, exposed not by his opponents, but by his own lack of self-awareness. Kennedy didn't have to shout or demand an apology. He simply spoke a truth that resonated deeply. Schiff, who had made a career of tearing down others, found himself torn down in front of the nation. His usual smug confidence had dissolved, and what replaced it was a man who was suddenly unsure of his place in the world. The room could feel it, an overwhelming sense of realization that his time might be coming to an end. The Senate's applause for Kennedy wasn't just a reaction to his cleverness. It was a recognition of the authenticity that had been missing from Schiff's approach. As the cameras turned to him, Schiff's thoughts were scattered. He had been humiliated, yes, but it was more than that. He had been made to see himself for the first time in a way that didn't align with the narrative he had been spinning for years. He was no longer the protagonist of the story. The people weren't looking to him for answers. They were looking at him with disappointment. Over the next few weeks, the media would be full of stories, pundits would speculate, and the public would gossip. But Adam Schiff's downfall wasn't just about his loss in a single debate. It was about a deeper unraveling, the collapse of a persona that had been built on arrogance and self-righteousness. He would never be the same again. John Kennedy, on the other hand, didn't gloat. He didn't need to. His victory was quieter, but far more powerful. In one moment of unassuming grace, he had done what no one expected. He hadn't just bested Schiff in a debate. He had shown the world what true leadership looked like. It wasn't about grandstanding, about winning arguments, or being the loudest voice in the room. It was about humility, authenticity, and remembering that true power doesn't come from tearing others down, but from lifting them up. The moral of the story is clear. The game of politics, of life itself, is never about how loud you can yell, how sharp your insults are, or how many people you could defeat along the way. True strength comes from understanding your purpose, from realizing that sometimes the strongest statement you can make is not with words, but with the integrity of your actions. It's about never forgetting why you're in the fight in the first place, and ensuring that when it's all said and done, you can look in the mirror and know you've fought for the right reasons.